Hi everyone, I'm Jay Cohen, editorial director here at Feedfeed, and we are in the kitchen with our friends at Bourbon Board to make an easy summer entertaining dessert that you're absolutely gonna love. This is a bourbon cherry tart on puff pastry, a little bit of sweetened ricotta. This is one of those recipes that you really make all the components separately and then you assemble it right when your guests arrive. We're gonna make the puff pastry base for the tart shell, cover it in a creamy ricotta mixture, and then top it with these like stewed cherries with bourbon, so it's sweet, a little bit boozy, nice and thick and syrupy. It's the perfect summer fruit dessert. So I have 2 cups of these plump, beautiful, ripe cherries, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna pit them using a magical pitter. You could do a few things. You can obviously use a paring knife, you could use a straw. I've seen like a million one different hacks, but this is my favorite. It's a classic. Pull off the stem, and then you come in and you just pop out the pit. And it makes a nice gory mess, so that's why I always do it over a bowl. And then we're gonna pop them right into a medium saucepan. And this is a perfect time to mention the fact that I'm wearing this beautiful Harlington apron that is going to catch any cherry guts to make sure that they don't get on your clothes and you're not covered in cherry juice. It's so delicious. There's really nothing quite like a ripe summer cherry. It's one of those fruits that you just can only get when they're in peak season. So you gotta get them while they last. Our cherries are pitted, so now I'm just going to toss everything into this medium saucepan and we're gonna get it stewing. So all we're really doing is gonna sweeten it, add some salt and some bourbon. That's gonna kind of be the catalyst to get the sugar dissolved, make the base of the syrup that we're then going to thicken with cornstarch. So I'm going to add to the 2 cups of pitted cherries, a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, 1/4 cup of bourbon. We're gonna cook it over medium-high heat just until the sugar dissolves and the cherries are tender. This should only take about 10 minutes. Our cherries are getting nice and tender. What I wanna do now is thicken up all those juices. I don't kinda want a syrupy mess on my tart. I want it to be like thick and jammy. So what we're gonna do is we are going to make a little cornstarch slurry. What that means is I'm not gonna add my cornstarch directly to the pan or else it would just be clumpy and gross. But I'm going to pull out 2 tablespoons of the syrup that's filling up at the bottom. I'm going to whisk in 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And what this is going to do is this is going to allow all of those juices to thicken up. Now I'm gonna come in and just add it straight into the pan. We are just looking to thicken up the juices. Once we add the cornstarch, it's only gonna take a few minutes to really gel up, and we're gonna pop it right off the heat and cool them down completely. This is going to allow the cornstarch to set. All the like kind of jammy bits are gonna get even thicker and more delicious, so we can add it straight to our tart and enjoy. This is a perfect thing that you can make in advance. You can make it the day before if you want. I typically make it the morning of whenever I'm gonna use it, just so I can let it kind of really temper to room temperature. Definitely do not sleep on the juices. You want to scrape out every last bit. And as you can see, our cherries are all intact. We have these nice, kind of beautiful gems of cherry flavor that are going to crown our puff pastry tart. So in between our puff pastry and our stewed cherries, I wanted to add a little more richness. So we are going to zhuzh up some ricotta with some more bourbon, some honey, and some salt. So I have a 1/2 cup of whole milk ricotta, and then I'm going to add in the remaining 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 1 tablespoon of honey, and 1 tablespoon of bourbon. Just going to mix this all together until incorporated, and then once we blind bake our puff pastry, I'm going to smear this on top. So we have our beautiful Provision rolling pin from Bourbon Board that I'm going to use to help get our puff pastry ready for this tart. The whole thing is, it's summer. Sometimes I love to make pie dough, sometimes I don't want to make anything. So this is kind of a great thing that you could just keep in your freezer. Puff pastry bought from the store, then we're gonna thaw it in the fridge until it is just pliable and easy to use. And what happens is it typically comes in a tri-fold, wrapped in parchment, So we are going to unwrap it and then transfer it to a lightly floured work surface. I'm just going to flour this up well. The main reason we're rolling it out is I don't want it too much thinner, but what I do want to do is get rid of any of the creases from unfolding. I want it to be nice and even. So you're really only going to do probably about 2 rolls. One that way, one that way, nice and even. We are good. All right, we're gonna transfer this over to a cutting board. We are making a dessert for 2 to 4 people. This is kind of my response to every other recipe I've been doing this summer, which is like big and feeds a ton of people. But sometimes you just want something sweet for you and a date, or you and a few friends that are coming over. So this is that perfect kind of like dessert for a small crowd. So I'm going to cut this into an 8-inch circle. So I just have a bowl that's 8 inches wide, and that's going to be my little guide. And I'll go through with a paring knife, and I'll trim. And I do not want to see anyone throwing out their puff pastry scraps. These are so good. I chop them up into pieces, throw it on top of crisps or cobblers. You can top this with cinnamon sugar and just bake it in the oven, and it's just like yummy little pie bites. You can do anything with this. I'll probably just throw this into a bag and deal with it in a little bit, make something sweet for the test kitchen. But meanwhile, we have our round. Now I want to make a little border. I have a little bit of a smaller bowl. It's about 7 inches. So I am just going to put it over, and then I'm not going to cut through, but I just want to score it gently. And then this is going to be my little guide when I add the ricotta in a little bit. So I'm going to throw this onto a parchment lined sheet pan and give it a little egg wash. We're gonna pop this into a 400-degree oven for 10 minutes. It's not gonna be cooked, it's not gonna be golden, it's just going to start to puff. Once you kind of start to see that, we're gonna add in our ricotta, and then we'll pop it back in, and then we will get it nice and golden brown, and you'll be absolutely amazed. Okay, so you are going to notice when you pull it out of the oven, it's going to look like a pita, it's gonna puff up, and as soon as it comes out, it's going to deflate. The reason being is that it's not fully cooked. We want to pull it out at this point because we're starting to see the layers appear, starting to get a tiny bit of color, but we have begun to set the bottom so we can add ricotta on top and then throw it back in. So I'm just going to add our bourbon ricotta filling right on top. And then I'm just going to smooth it out up to the edges. I can still see the little border that I made. Beautiful. I'm gonna pop this back into the oven until it is completely golden brown, puffed up on the sides. The ricotta is going to be golden and set. Everything that you want out of the base of a tart. It's gonna take probably about another 20 minutes. Our tart's out of the oven. Take a look, the puff pastry is golden brown. There is one test. The only test when you're baking puff pastry is the bottom golden brown and crisp, or is it soggy and disgusting? And if we come in close, we can see that we have a nice golden bottom. We are going to just transfer it to our Mendota serving tray from Bourbon Board, and we are just going to plate it up. So we have our base here. If I was doing this in advance for a dinner party, I would make this component in advance. I would make this component in advance of the stewed cherries, and then I would keep them separate until this very moment when all my guests arrive. So what I will then do is top the cherries on top, and then we'll garnish it and slice. We're just going to drizzle the rest of that right over. Let's garnish it with a little mint. Pick this straight from our garden, nice and fresh. Add a little more of a whimsical touch. We have some edible flowers from the garden, a little bit of white to contrast the kind of deep dark red colors we're doing. So beautiful.
What kind of flowers?
So these are actually cilantro flowers. All right, last thing to do is cut this beauty up. So like I said, this is the perfect treat for about 2 to 4 people. So Miss Sarah-Tane, will you come try my dessert?
Thank you, Your Majesty.
All right, so we have a puff pastry tart, a little bit of ricotta, stewed cherries with bourbon.
Yum.
And the thing is, you can eat with a fork. We're trying to be like all civilized, but also it kind of works like pizza, just because it's like puff pastry.
Fold it.
Are you pro-fold or anti-fold?
Pro-fold.
Pro-fold.
This is
so good.
delicious. The cherries are so good.
And they still have their shape, which I like. I hate like mushy fruit, like a little bite, little toothsome cherry.
Yeah, it's really good.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
You can take the rest.
Goodbye.
Thank you so much to Room and Board for the incredible kitchen equipment to help us create this wonderful dessert. If you want the recipe, you could head to thefeedfeed.com, and we'll see you next time.